Hey folks, welcome to Unqualified, the fantasy football podcast that's been featuring Pickles heavily in their episodes since 2017. I'm your producer, Rob Diesendorf, here with Sean Brady and Scott Johnson, two fantasy pickles that have been pickling each other for years. They decided to sabotage each other and pickle each other for years.
That sounds...
How's it going, Pickles?
Wildly weird.
Pickles.
Pickle, Jimmy Pickle.
You ever have a pickled pickle?
No, I wonder what that... You ever have a fried pickle? Those are dope.
Oh, those are
I have
delicious.
had a fried pickle.
We
Man,
do
this is
like...
my
Insane.
birthday.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah, they were full ones, too, right? They weren't
Those
like
are so
slices.
good.
I gotta be honest,
Oh,
I like
they're
the
delicious.
slices better, though.
The little medallions.
Fried slices.
Yeah, it's just cleaner. What's a power ranking? What's your top, maybe one or two pickled veggies?
I'm a big proponent of pickled peppers, whether that's jalapenos or like I don't know what peppers they put on like
jalapenos, for sure.
Italian sandwiches. They do like hot cherry peppers or something. I don't know what they're called.
I don't know, actually.
Oh,
Banana
yeah.
peppers. Banana peppers.
Oh, banana peppers.
Jalapenos, pickled?
All those are delicious.
Yeah, I feel like they throw some jalapenos in there.
Oh,
I'm big,
yeah, that I put those on everything.
I'm a big pickled like radish guy.
Ooh,
Really like
that's
those.
not what I
They're
expected
just-
you to say.
Yeah, I
That is
love
a bold
radishes in
choice.
general, but like you pickle some radishes, it's you know how to describe it. It's just better. And carrots too.
Is that like kimchi? Like kimchi is it's pickled
no,
cabbage.
I hate
Oh,
kimchi.
kimchi.
Kimchi's
Oh
disgusting.
no.
Not about
I actually really like it.
Kimchi
I
is
have to be-
disgusting.
I have to be in the mood for it, like maybe like a twice a year mood. But
In a
I like
disgusting
kimchi.
mood.
You know
Exactly.
what's interesting?
Feeling
That
grimy.
cucumbers were cucumbers, and then all of a sudden somebody put them in brine, and then they said, "You're a pickle now."
Isn't it just wait, what do you mean brine? What is that?
It's a cucumber.
What's
Brine. That's what they're in.
Brine is like the acid that they go in.
The
like
salty,
vinegar, right?
The salty liquid.
What?
They put them in a brine.
The definition of brine
and then they become
is
pickles.
water
They just say,
strongly
it's
impregnated with salt.
it's just been sitting in this liquid. Now it's a pickle. Doesn't make sense.
Scott, should we explain why this episode is so heavily featuring pickles, or should we just bury the lead? What do you think?
Whatever you think. I don't know. If you don't know now, you don't know. You won't know.
Bury the pickle.
We're burying the pickle. Oh, that
sounds
is brutal.
rough.
Yeah.
That's tough.
All right.
All right.
All right, we're not going to bury the pickle. The reason we're talking about pickles is there's some guys this year in the fantasy landscape that you might be unsure of what you're doing. You might be, quote unquote, in a pickle, if you will. When you think about these guys, we're going to try to sort out some of the quagmire going on with some guys in particular. It's actually really 5 or 6 guys that are going to have a lot of questions and a lot of bullshit answers before the fantasy draft season comes around. But we want to give you our takes before draft season gets into the thick of it.
Yo quiero pickles.
All right, time to kick things off in this pickle episode with Todd Gurley, probably the biggest fantasy pickle this year. Look, I mean, he was the number 1 overall player 2 years ago. I think he was the number 2 running back last year, despite missing 2 games, which is like unreal. And it's kind of crazy, but we're going to go through the situation, the stats from last year, the price, and the verdict, what we think you should do with this guy. The situation here is just, it's kind of depressing, but it's also
grim.
kind of mysterious. It's a very gray situation here. I would say we all know that how weird it was to see Todd Gurley not killing it with a couple of dud performances in the playoffs last year. And when that time came around, obviously the noise about his knee problems became the worst kept secret in the entire league. Has what has been described as an arthritic knee, and there is talk that his days as a feature back are already over, even though he's only 24. I mean, Sean McVay said something to that effect, about a month or so ago. The team says they'll still lean on him, but overall, this is not a good sign. Like, if there's smoke, there's fire. There's probably something wrong with his knee. Maybe they're kind of saying down the road there's going to be more issues than there are right now. But they did just draft Darrell Henderson in the 3rd round, so I don't know. I'm not loving this. The stats, obviously, from last year, they say it all. 14 games played, he had 1,251 rushing yards, 17 touchdowns on the ground, and that's not even counting his 59 catches for 580 yards and 4 more touchdowns receiving. I mean, he's unreal, but it's kind of sad to say that it seems like he's already on the downswing of his career. The price right now, he's going in the early second round. To me, I see why people don't want to take him in the first, but I think if you get 10 to 12 games out of Gurley, it's worth the price of a second rounder. I think even if he touches the ball less with Henderson there, he's still going to be uber efficient. And yeah, the injury risk is there, but it's there with every player in the league. So I think for redraft 1 year purposes, I love Todd Gurley. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, there's so much to the story, and I was reading, I think it was New York Post about it, and they said, yeah, you're right. It's not only is it, a re-aggravation of his injury when he was at Georgia, but it's also arthritis in it. And he said it's not arthritis, but that injury, I think I mentioned this a couple of pods ago, that injury that he had when he tore his ACL at Georgia his senior year, he almost wasn't going to be ready for training camp and at the start of the season, his rookie year, and then miraculously came around and had over 1,000 yards his rookie year, like out of the gate. But everyone was like, don't know how you didn't get re-injured. And it was said, like, within the 4 years since that surgery or that injury, that type of injury, there's going to be a re-aggravation. And he didn't have it rookie year, second off year, his third year, which is the number one overall fantasy player or running back. And then last year, it re-aggravated. So it was only a matter of time, unfortunately. But, yeah, I mean, you got arthritis now. You have some mystery behind it. I'm taking him in the late second round, and you need to have Darrell Henderson if you're thinking about having Todd Gurley. Even if you don't have Todd Gurley and you want to kind of handcuff someone else's player, then I would take Henderson then too.
Yeah, that's another point that, like, I kind of hate the fact that when I take him in the second round, I now have to spend my 8th round pick on Darrell Henderson to make sure I get him. Like, I don't like tying up my round 2 and 8 in one pick. That's brutal to me. I would say there's going to be people scared off by this. If he does slip into the end of the second round, I feel like it almost gets to a point where it's like the breaking point where you just have to take him. But I definitely wouldn't blame someone for looking elsewhere early in round 2.
Yeah, and it sucks. He's 24 years old, and he's an insane talent. But you have some game. I mean, you have to be under the assumption that you might have some games that he puts up some duds like he did in the playoffs and towards the end of the regular season.
Which isn't the end of the world, but by his standard, it's going to be really weird when he's like RB7 instead of RB2.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, let's talk about this pickle that is not really a pickle anymore, but might still pickle you on draft day. Tyreek Hill. Very contentious offseason for Tyreek Hill. We're not going to go into the depths of what was he allegedly did and almost definitely did because there was video evidence and audio evidence. But essentially, he's not going to be punished at all by the law or the NFL. So he will be playing the entire year, which to me is unreal. I anticipated a full year suspension based on what came out earlier in the offseason, but here we are. He'll play 16 games, and like it or not, Scott, to me, he's like an early second-round pick because he's so good at football. You're just going to feel really dirty if you take him there. It's really how much moral high ground are you willing to give up when you pick Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. There's not many words to describe it. It's kind of disgusting that, I mean, listen, like there's due process for sure. We won't get into it, but if allegedly what he did was true, it's just disgraceful. He's a piece of shit human being, just like Joe Mixon is. But again, moral high ground. Same with Joe Mixon. Like they're talented football players, and they're not being suspended. So for fantasy purposes, if you're okay with taking them, take them. I'm not going to take them in any league. But what this does do wonders for is Pat Mahomes and his fantasy stock. Because before the news of this non-suspension came out, Mahomes was. He was still the number one quarterback getting taken, but 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards was looking like it was going to be tough to reach without Tyreek Hill. And Mecole Hardman, the promising second-round rookie, who is a Speedy Gonzalez type, like Tyreek Hill type, I think the outbreak or the potential breakout season is not going to happen this year now.
I would say one more thing to keep an eye on here is, I mean, a non-suspension aside, that's what everyone's going to be talking about, and rightfully so. I mean, he did allegedly unspeakable things and like beat his child and threatened the mother of his children, and just it seems like not a great guy. Let's just leave it at that. And people are going to talk about that all offseason for leading up until well into the season, I'm sure. But it's also a contract year for Tyreek Hill. So that's another factor here. I feel like the Chiefs, while they are kind of known to take these kind of questionable character, high ceiling guys and kind of turn them into their projects, Tyreek Hill obviously is like a glowing example of them getting production out of a guy like that. They may move off of him, and this may be the last year we see him in a Chiefs uniform. So that, if that is a problem, might affect his production down the road during the season. I can't say he seems mature enough to be above all that. That's all I'm going to say.
And maybe dynasty and keeper leagues, you might want to think twice about it, especially
Exactly.
keeper leagues. If this is a contract year, and the Chiefs organization, just like the Patriots, Steelers, they have a tendency to turn players like that around. He goes somewhere else. He goes to, I don't know, Jacksonville. He's going to be running wild.
I think his value is still at the highest it will ever be in his entire career. There's no way.
I would agree with that.
There's no way it goes any higher than this. First off, there's no way he doesn't get in trouble again for something. So that's another hit that will come down the road. So I would say if you're looking at him in Dynasty, as fun as it is to watch him sprint down the field, it's probably going to be more fun when you get 200 cents on the dollar for dealing Tyreek Hill. But for the upcoming year, he's a second-round pick. Like, take it or leave it. I'm going to actually have a lot of thinking to do before I wind up picking him in the second round. I don't know if a replication of last year is even in the cards, regardless of all this contract stuff. So he's one where I kind of loved him last year. I loved him the year before just based on his price. His price now is the highest it will be in his career. So another thing to think about on draft day.
Okay, let's turn our attention to quarterback for a moment with Cam Newton. And coming out of the early 2019 season, I guess, last year, Cam Newton was very hot topic because he had shoulder surgery in January, and it's kind of late. And, he's kind of saying he'll be ready for camp, he'll be ready for the season. But, he had significant shoulder trouble last year. It was noticeable when he was playing that he was hurt, and he was not looking right. And his QBR on deep throws has gone down every year for the past 3 years. He's kind of trending, as far as throwing the ball, in the wrong direction, even though they had a pretty solid year last year. I think that's obviously why he stuck it out and didn't get surgery earlier. They also just drafted Will Grier. Scott, what do you think of Cam Newton for this year?
Yeah, so one of the hallmarks of Cam Newton in previous years was his deep throw accuracy. And before 2018, he was one of the best ones in terms of accuracy, yards after the catch, clean throws in the pocket and stuff like that. And then you look at last year, different scheme, right? Norv Turner's scheme, but it really wasn't Norv Turner's fault. It was the injury, the re-aggravation of the injury for Cam Newton. And I have a couple stats here. He finished third to last among all qualifying quarterbacks, like, whatever it was, 40 of them that played last year. Third to last when he was under pressure in deep throw accuracy or completion percentage, 18.75%. So that tells me, like, even at 30 or 29 years old, he just wasn't comfortable in the pocket, and his pocket presence has been okay in previous years. He's been able to get out of the pocket and run, but he's taken a lot of sacks in his career, just like Andrew Luck has, and after a while, it kind of catches up to you. And he was also tied for last throwing into open windows, completely wide open guys. And yeah, maybe it was a lack of acumen on the part of his wide receivers. They were very young. Curtis Samuel was in his second year, I think. DJ Moore was his first year. Devin Funchess couldn't catch anything. He was tied for last throwing into those open windows, though, with 33.33%. So, yeah, they can say he's healthy as much as they want, but drafting Will Grier in the third round when he was almost a first overall consensus pick, and not that they got rid of some of his weapons, but they're kind of banking a lot on DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel to take a next step forward. I'm not going anywhere near Cam Newton this year, even if his rushing attempts increase, which his rushing has gone down in the past 2 or 3 years as well.
Yeah, I would say you got to keep a couple things in mind. First off, we talked last week about how many good quarterbacks there are. There's plenty of other options, so that's something to keep in mind right away. And then 2, probably 100 of those passes, 100 of those completions are going to Christian McCaffrey, and I love Christian McCaffrey, but those are not going over 20 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not throwing the ball as deep. Hopefully, you hope that Samuel or DJ Moore emerges as that deep threat, but those are run after the catch guys. So he's counting on his receivers to do a lot of work after getting the ball in their hands. He does not have a premier deep threat on the team to take the top off, and people are just licking their chops every time he runs because they just want to knock this guy out. When you have to pay even a 10th round pick on this guy, when you factor in the injury risk, I'm staying away too. I agree with you.
Yeah. Some guys that I would rather take in round 10 or even 11, like before him, Carson Wentz, who should have a bounce back year after a big extension. Even Jared Goff, who is getting perpetually undervalued now too. I wouldn't take Kyler Murray over Cam, but I wouldn't take either one. Baker Mayfield, like those are guys I'd much rather have than Cam this year.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about another situation here that is quickly developing from a cucumber into a pickle, Scott, and that is the state of the running back, state of the franchise caliber running back here. We have in kind of almost back-to-back days, about a week ago, we had Melvin Gordon on the Chargers and then Ezekiel Elliott on the Cowboys. Both put out some leaked information about their upcoming contract negotiations, and it seems like both guys are threatening to hold out. On the Zeke side, I think they said this has the potential to go sideways. That's the way they phrased it. But Melvin Gordon straight up said he might hold out into the season if the Chargers choose not to extend his contract before the season starts. And this is just a really tricky situation for fantasy owners, especially after what happened last year with Le'Veon Bell. I don't think, and this is what we also said last year about Le'Veon Bell, so you can take this as a grain of salt if you want. I don't think either of these guys will miss more than one game each. That's like the absolute maximum. I think they saw how Le'Veon Bell's situation played out, and it clearly backfired on him from a financial standpoint. So I think having him go through that last year with the Steelers kind of sets the table for these guys to wind up playing more often than not. But Scott, are you worried about either of these guys? Because this is not what I want to worry about with a top 4 pick in Zeke and then a top 7 likely pick in Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about Zeke. If anything, he had some offseason troubles again, which is like just par for the course for him. It's just ridiculous at this point. And I don't think there's any suspension going on. I don't know if we want to go into that too much, but the contract dispute for him, I believe he has 2 more years in his contract. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, he does.
He does. So it's kind of weird that he's doing it now. I think he'll be fine. I think Le'Veon Bell last year opened up the door for all these guys doing this, to be honest with you. And like you said, it kind of bit him. Melvin Gordon, I'm actually really concerned about, not just for the contract dispute. I think this is a big distraction, of course. I think the team dynamic hasn't changed much. I mean, they lost Tyrell Williams, but there's still going to be a pass-first offense with Phillip Rivers still at the helm. Yes, Melvin Gordon has had at least 50 catches in the past 2 years, but if you look at his career stats for 4 years now, he's in his fifth year in the rookie contract, slated to make $5.6 million, I think, this year. He's only had over 1,000 yards rushing one time in 4 years. So this is similar. I think it was last year, we said this about like Le'Veon Bell. Like, if you look at his stats, I don't know, he's only surpassed 1,000 yards twice in 5 years, and he's still like a top 2 guy. Melvin Gordon is the same exact thing, and he's always hurt. He's only played 1 full season. When he did play a full season, it was 1,100 yards. Yards from scrimmage was about 1,600. 1,600. They have Austin Eckler. They have Justin Jackson, who both proved themselves last year. Still run pass first offense. So that does concern me a lot. I think Melvin Gordon shouldn't be drafted in the top 6. I think he's an early second round pick, and I would feel comfortable drafting him then, especially considering these contract dispute talks.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think Zeke, when you look at Zeke, I mean, he gets the ball so much that I mean, his efficiency, he essentially had 4.7 yards per carry last year, but he got the ball so much. He had 1,400 rushing yards alone, and then he caught the ball 77 times on top of that. So even when he's not putting the ball in the end zone, he's still valuable. Again, he's 2 years out from the contract. It makes no sense for him to hold out because he needs to accrue this season
Absolutely.
to be eligible for free agency in a year, 2 years time anyway. So to me, it doesn't make any sense for him to do that. I feel like they're just trying to get out ahead of the contract negotiation, and so they come in with a little bit of more leverage than they otherwise would. On the Melvin Gordon side, similar stats. First off, he was more efficient running the ball than Zeke. He had 5.1 yards per carry last year, but he didn't even top 900 yards on the ground.
Yep.
That, to me, and obviously part of that is he only played in 12 games, but again, he very rarely plays the full. I mean, you're really looking for 15 for fantasy purposes, but he is a little bit banged up, right? And he's missed time in, I think, almost every single year, except for this awful rookie year. And he doesn't catch the ball quite as much as the other guys either. He had 50 receptions last year, which is great, first off. He's definitely one of the feature backs in the NFL, but again, he's relying on touchdown potentially at 14 last year, and there's even some high efficiency stats or high end stats that show that he doesn't get the ball inside the 5-yard line rushing the ball. So that's probably going to go down at some point. So all these signs are just pointing to a gradual decline. I don't think I'm really worried if he does play this year about his performance. I think he'll be just fine. But you're looking at almost the tail end of this guy's prime already, which is crazy. So it doesn't really make sense for the Chargers to give him a huge contract. They're too smart of an organization. So this might actually get ugly. I agree with you. He is a guy that I didn't feel great about in the first round, kind of like you either. So to me, that just pushes him down to second round category, which is where his value should have been anyway.
Yeah, and his goal line touches, he's middling at best. And you think of him as a pretty big guy. I think he's like 6 foot, 15, 220, 6'1", 225. That's pretty good size. It's almost Adrian Peterson size. Yeah. When you look at it, and he's always hurt, but goal line, he gets the ball. He has had less efficiency than Austin Eckler the past year, over the past year and a half when Eckler's been there. So, not doesn't really bode well for his. And honestly, in the first round, I'd rather have Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, those three guys over him, and even Le'Veon Bell. Those two, Le'Veon Bell and Melvin Gordon, are the only two running backs I feel like kind of iffy about. I'd almost rather have David Johnson than Melvin Gordon, to be honest with you.
100%. I would take him before Melvin Gordon, even if he wasn't threatening to hold out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of I'm kind of glad he's getting pushed into the second round because that's where I'm more likely to take him anyway. And again, you mentioned Austin Eckler. I mean, that's a guy that I want on my team this year because Melvin Gordon's going to get hurt. Eckler's going to have a role regardless of Gordon's health. Eckler was valuable last year. He was
last year.
Borderline starter with a healthy Melvin Gordon killing it. And then obviously Eckler got hurt himself. I think he needs a second guy in the backfield to really maximize his efficiency. That way he doesn't get hurt himself. But that's a guy you want on your team because his upside is huge. He's a great PPR option.
Couldn't agree more.
So Melvin Gordon, stay away. Zeke, I think we feel pretty confident that he's still worth a top 4 pick. Okay, this last fantasy pickle is actually kind of the one with the most moving parts. There's a lot to unpack here. We're going to take a little bit more time to talk about this situation here. This is the Browns running back situation with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. You obviously know the Kareem Hunt breakout story from 2 years ago. He had a monster rookie year, and then he followed it up with a very solid sophomore year last year until... Do I even want to get into it again? Everything happened with the TMZ video and the not domestic violence, but the aggravated assault in the hotel room. Kareem Hunt getting obviously released and suspended by the Chiefs and the NFL, respectively. He's going to be out for the first 8 weeks. He's going to be coming back in week 10 after the Browns bye. The Browns obviously picked him back up. And that's only one half of this equation, Scott. The other side of this is that Nick Chubb, who spent the first, 4 weeks, maybe even longer, on the Browns, buried on the Browns depth chart behind Carlos Hyde last year, and then broke out in a big way, is now once again in a backfield by committee. I don't know whether the Browns just don't get how good Nick Chubb is, or they just
wanted to give Kareem Hunt a second chance. I don't know, Scott. What do you think of this situation? Because as a Nick Chubb fan, I really am kind of worried about Kareem Hunt there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if Nick Chubb, if they didn't pick up Kareem Hunt in the offseason, Nick Chubb would not be going in round 3 or 4 right now. He'd be going top 10 easily because his year last year was that good. He almost had 1,000 yards after starting only 9 games. And, I mean, he played all 16, but, like, was buried on the depth chart, like you said. So, I think their bye is week 7. So, Hunt is eligible to come back week...
Maybe it's week 9.
It might be week 9. I don't know. He's eligible to come back week 10. It doesn't bode well for when he does come back, but there's going to be some rust there. And you might be able to get away with Nick Chubb, like a full fantasy season with Nick Chubb at the helm, because it's only 15 weeks. It doesn't really go to or 16 weeks. It doesn't really go to week 17 oftentimes. So you might be able to get away with it by the time like Kareem Hunt shakes the rust off. Like it might be week 12 or 13 or something like that.
My question is, Scott, what does this look like when Hunt is back and the rust is off? So let's say 2 weeks in. And let's assume Chubb is fully healthy, Hunt is fully healthy. What does that backfield look like? Because am I crazy to think that Nick Chubb is every bit as good as Kareem Hunt, if not better? Like, where do you evaluate those two guys?
Not crazy at all. I think it would be like a 60-40 split. They're going to give it to Nick Chubb as long as he's healthy, like you said, because he will have been doing this all year up until Hunt comes back. So I would say it's like 60-40, and then it might shift to like 50-50 split. But it's just there's so many unknowns. Like we don't even know how this team is going to break up running and passing with Baker and his new weapon. So it's like too early to tell. I don't think you need to draft Kareem Hunt if you take Nick Chubb, but I think you do need to pick him up like week 5 or 6 just to be kind of have some foresight with it.
Yeah, it's a great point. Actually, we can talk all we want about Hunt and Chubb, but don't forget that probably the alpha skill player here is going to be Odell Beckham Jr. He's probably going to take precedence over both of these guys. And then there's always Jarvis Landry, who's a target monster in years past. So, and that's not even counting David Njoku or Antonio Callaway. So, like, there's a lot of mouths that might need to get fed here.
Shard Higgins.
So, it's very possible that Nick Chubb just has a monster start to the year, and there's no room for Kareem Hunt to get more than 5 to 7 touches a game. It's entirely possible that Chubb just seizes this job and doesn't let it go.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Which I really hope happens because I'm a big fan. I feel like I'm going to get a lot of shares of Nick Chubb this year in round 3 because he was awesome. He was awesome.
And one quick thing about Hunt's contract, Kareem Hunt's contract. I believe it's only $1 million for 2019. So it's not like binding. So it's not necessarily like a tryout year, but I mean, the Browns are not on the hook for him after that. So that's something to keep in mind. If Chubb runs away with his job, like it's his.
I really hope that happens, but just knowing how things go in the NFL, we're probably going to, like, I can already tell we're going to be talking about this in week, 7 of the regular season. Kareem Hunt's getting ready to come back, and it's going to be a whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's probably going to be so much drama with that team. I kind of wish they were on Hard Knocks again, but we'll have to settle for the Raiders this year.
Oh, yeah. 1,000%.
All right, that does it for our Fantasy Pickles episode. I feel like this is like our, how like every good rock band has that solo album, or maybe like that solo song on the album for the lead singer. I feel like that's kind of what we did here. We kind of stepped away from our typical setup and went with our passion for pickles today. And hopefully you guys, we settled some things, didn't make it even more complicated for you guys with these situations. There's a lot of controversy around these guys, and if we could, help solidify your opinions on at least one of them, then we did our job. So hopefully you're not in as many pickles going into 2019 as we are.
When life gives you lemons,
Pickle it up, dude.
pickle it up. Pickle it up.
Oh, what would a
Either
pickled
pickle it
lemon
up
be like?
or pickle it out.
When life gives you lemons, live moss.
Pickle.
What'd you say about lemons, Sean?
Like, what would a pickled lemon taste like?
Oh my god,
terrible.
Ew. Gross. What?
Or maybe it would be good. Maybe it would be so bitter and sour that it would be like
Like
and
a warhead.
salty. I'm pretty sure that's like the worst thing you could probably have. Nah, probably not. That's a stupid statement. But
I feel like your teeth would just fall out. Like
Yeah.
that would just be.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's how I think too. Yeah, you'd bite into it and your teeth would just explode.
Don't do it.
Live Moss.
For those listening.
Live
Careful,
Moss.
Live Moss.
So
Hero Pickles.
Big Lemon. Sponsor us. Sponsor us.
Yo quiero pickled lemons.
Well, see you later.
Well, see you later.
Okay.